Greetings, fellow barbarians. It is I, Alan Odinson, and this is the Barbarian Lounge. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. We've got a pretty cool show lined up. A lot of times these topics I come up with, man, they're kind of things that pop up during social media. I haven't really been spending as much time on social media as I was, kind of taking a little bit of a break. It's not that I'm not there, but I'm not posting a lot, but I'm monitoring. I'll post little things every now and then, but it's been a pretty big week in the social media world for the Barbarian Lounge. I will say this, our Facebook page just got I think last week we got over 300 new additions to the Facebook page, so we've cracked 1,000 people on there, so I'm very happy about that. In 1 week, I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal to see it grow that fast. So all you new barbarians to the lounge, welcome. We'll see after you guys listen to me for a while and see how many of you get offended and leave. I might set a record for the fastest climb as well as the slowest or the fastest decline as well. So we'll see how that plays out. Hopefully we don't have too many offendicons who have managed to find their way into the lounge, because I assure you, if you're easily offended, you might as well find the exit and head on out, because today's content may do the same. It may actually, you may leave offended, you may leave knowledgeable about the material. I don't know. We may leave with more conversations to be had, but we'll see how that plays out. Let's get a few things out of the way here real quick. TheBarbarianLounge.com is our website. You can go there, check it out. We've got the Barbarian Lounge store. If you click on there, we've got a few items in there now, some more knives, some different style tourniquets. We've also got some EDC bags and stuff like that. We're going to be adding more things there. I know I keep telling you guys this, but I've got stuff actually on the way that I'm going to be carrying in the store that I think you guys will definitely enjoy. All the stuff I carry there, I want it to be things that I endorse. I want it to be things that, content-based stuff, different ideas from shows we've done in the past. Of course, there's obviously going to be prepper gear in there, but also some other items too, because, a lot of people like different types of, I don't want to call them novelty items, but me, I'm a collector of different things. One of the tenets of Musashi that I've never followed very well is the ability to not collect things. I like to collect things. I've always liked to collect things. It's weird. Sometimes it leads me with too much of a cluttered dwelling, and that's one of the things I've been really fighting with this year, is removing a lot of clutter. But my thing tends to be more weapons based. I also like I like flags a lot. That's one of my weird things. I collect a lot of pirate flags. So if you ever come visit me, if you go to my my hall of power, I guess you can call it that, my own personal gym, it's it's wall to wall pirate flags, and I'll tell you a fucking story about every one of them. So that's kind of my thing. But you can go there to the BarbarianLounge.com. Check out the donate button that's on there as well. Now, the donate button will give you many different options that you can choose to follow to help to support the show. We have the one-time PayPal button that you can mash there and do a one-time donation, whatever amount you want to, just a little something to say thanks for the content that we put out. Every little bit helps. It helps keeps the lights on in here, helps keep me fueled up, helps me to further bring this show to a better level, which I'm constantly trying to do, constantly trying to push this show a little bit higher each time in that climb. You could also go there. We have an Amazon wish list where we've got different items on there, things that we're looking to do some shows on the road, because we're going to be doing a little bit of traveling this year. And we got some shows lined up, possibly to do on the road. I'd love to get some interviews from Blade Show this year, so we'll see how that plays out. I'm obviously going to need some gear for that. So there's some options to help do that in the Amazon store. So if you just want to send me something, that's cool too. Like I said, every little bit helps. Also, we have affiliate links on there. Got some for Amazon there, where you can click on the affiliate link, bookmark that link. Whenever you shop, a small percentage of what you purchase comes to us, and it just helps a little bit more. But the option that I actually urge people to follow is the link for the Patreon. Now, that will be our member site. Now, the Patreon member site offers you several perks. several perks that I think you should definitely look into becoming a part of. Because I can tell you, of the patrons we have, we're growing each week, and the patrons we have are giving me very positive feedback about the material that's coming out. It also allows you to contact me a little easier. We've got a little better contact between each other. But on the Patreon, basically what you do is you do $1 per episode. Now, as a member of Patreon, you'll get our 4 regular shows we do every month. That's one show a week. You will get those early, ahead of everybody else. So that's one perk you get. But also, the biggest perk out of all of them is you get 4 extra shows that are only available on Patreon. So if you're not a member, you'll never get to hear those shows. So that's one thing I'm going to stick to. Like I said, I could put all this content out and blow up the internet with all the content I'm pushing out, but I don't want to do that. I want the people who have a little bit of skin in the game to get a little more, because they're showing initiative to want to help this show grow. So I want to do more for them. This isn't something that I just decided, well, I guess I'll give them a little something. No, I want to do this. If you guys are willing to help me out, I want to give you more. That's always been my philosophy. I want to have that win-win situation. And I think that Patreon is the best way to do it. So basically you can donate as little. Some people donate $1, some people donate $3, some people donate $5, some people donate $10, whatever it may be. But for just $1 an episode, that's 8 episodes. We do no more than 8 a month. That comes up to $8 a month to help support the show. That helps keep the lights on here. As you guys have listened to me talk about some of the things we've had to go through with this show, get some different attacks. I've had to upgrade different protection services here on my websites and everything. They attempt to hack us all the time. They tried to hit me a couple weeks ago, but luckily, I'm glad I actually got some extra protection on there, or they would have probably cleaned us out pretty good. So thankful for that protection, and I'm thankful for all your support. So please go there, patreon.com/thebarbarianlounge. Go there, give a donation, help the show out. Also, if you're a member if you're on iTunes or Stitcher, you can also find the Barbarian Lounge there. You can also find us on UCY.tv Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. They run some of our past shows on there, so it's a great way to catch up. Sometimes they'll run earlier some of our other shows as well, some of our later ones. It kind of depends on how they want to run them. But there's a live chat that goes on. You can meet other people and talk about the content of the show. So it's a good option for a lot of people. UCY.tv has some pretty interesting content, so go check them out. Now, I think I've covered just about everything. Sometimes it's difficult for me. Sponsors. You guys think I've got some kind of like fucking teleprompter shit written out here, but no, man, I tend to fly right off the seat of my pants. That's the way I always run things. I don't like to be scripted. I remember I had somebody want me to be on a show, and they were trying to script me questions, and I'm like, look, I don't work with a script, guys. Or they tell me they want me to do a speech, and they're like, hey, send me your speech. I want to see it. I'm like, speech? Motherfucker, I don't write a speech. I get up and I talk to people. It's not... I may have some little bit organized, like some notes on some cards or something, just to keep me in line if I'm doing something public. But other than that, I've always ad-libbed. Anytime I rehearse shit, it always fucks it up. I know some guys like to write out all their content and just read it for the podcast, and that's cool if that works for you, but I'm not that kind of guy, man. Sometimes it causes me to drift off a little bit, so I have to kind of reel myself back in. So that's why a lot of times I'll use like note cards and shit with just like some sentences on it to remind me, hey, Odinson, watch where the fuck you're going. Because if not, man, I'll run right off the rails. But sponsors. How can I forget my motherfucking sponsors? Sponsors. OdinsonArchery.com. Traditional bows made from non-traditional materials. I urge you to go there, check it out, get your orders in while you can, because there's some big shit coming for Odinson Archery in the coming months. I'm just going to leave it at that. I want it to be a big fucking surprise. So there's some big stuff getting ready to happen. So if you want to get into archery, if you want to add to your arsenal, add to your prepping gear, add to your skill set, get the family together. They got family packs that are very, very popular and ways to get families together, get them out shooting, hanging out and everything. That's one of the strong things that's behind Odinson Archery is strong family. Strong family, it's a unity, and you need that. Maybe your tribe wants to gain a new skill. Find other ways to get stronger, find better concentration, build a new deadly skill. You don't have to break the bank. You can go to OdinsonArchery.com and check out all the different items that are on there, and it helps support the show as well. Also, Mitacon, my boys at Mitacon. Mitacon, I'm gonna do my commercial voice here, guys. Mitacon, with a proper diet, supports the cell's fastest, most effective absorption of natural nutrients in each 250 milliliter bottle and sustains the body's mitochondria generation of usable energy key to producing ATP, the energy-rich fuel the body needs to achieve peak athletic strength, performance, endurance, and recovery. It's my best commercial voice. I hope you enjoy it. But Mitacon, man, I tell you, you guys always know, got my glass sitting here. The glass sitting here, got some ice in it, nice and cold. Glass of Mitacon here to keep me focused. As I said, I've told you guys I started powerlifting again. My muscles are starting to remember what was going on before I quit. So I'm starting to get back into that, and I'm getting that Mitacon, chugging that Mitacon to help with that recovery. Let me tell you, it is a phenomenal addition. Also, like I said, I tell you guys all the time, the focus that it gives me is unbelievable. If not, man, there's no telling where I'd go. I'd start talking about who knows what. So check them out. That's mitoconusa.com. My boys there will hook you up. So let's get on to our content of the show. So today's content is going to be in regards to a topic I've heard come up over and over again in many different circles. And it's the concept of the ethnostate. You know, the idea of the ethnostate, a lot of people tend to kind of place it onto like white nationalist groups. And yes, white nationalist groups do tend to talk about it a good bit. But I've heard the term ethnostate in other ethnic groups as well. I've heard black nationalists speak of it and whatnot. I don't know if they go by black or African, whatever kind of nationalists they are. I've heard them speak on it. You don't hear a lot of the Asian communities, but you know, when you listen to a lot of the Hispanics, when they start saying, you know, make America Mexico again, they're basically talking about an ethnostate. So it's not something that's just attached to groups like white nationalists, even though I think they probably have the most content on it. You know, and then with the white nationalists, you see it kind of chop up into other even smaller groups where you have ethnostates you have Southern ethnostates and Republic of Texas ethnostate and all these different things like that. So, or then you just have a regular setup ethnostate somewhere in the U.S. or Europe or wherever the hell they want to do it. So that tends to be what you hear about it most. But just for people who are wondering, you know, the whole idea of an ethnostate, it's kind of difficult to find a good definition. This is probably one of the better ones I've seen. Ethnostate's the creation of a state/nation populated and run by a specific ethnic group. So you may ask yourself, well, how in the world do you accomplish something like that? Well, mostly from a historical standpoint, you don't. But the idea behind it is basically, and I guess I can say this and kind of eliminate some of the falsehoods that are out there. A lot of people, when they talk about Richard Spencer, of course, they go right to like the Nazi term, right? Or even just white nationalists in general. I say Richard Spencer because that tends to be the name that's on everybody's evil Nazi list, even though the guy is not technically a Nazi. There's not a lot of Nazis running around, guys. But they'll tell me, I had a guy tell me a while back that Richard Spencer, he wants to exterminate all the other races, right? And he wants to have them exterminated. And when you look at his wording, he always uses the idea of them basically leaving. It's not really, you can't really even say removal, because it's not like you're forcing people out with the idea of most of the ideas behind the ethnostate. It's basically like, I kind of word it like this. If you got someplace like Chicago, or even just probably in whatever state you are listening to this right now, you have areas that are black neighborhoods. And if you're not black, you don't go there. Here in South Carolina, we've got areas like that. We've also got areas that are full some really rough rednecks that you don't go there either unless you're one of them. So it doesn't just extend to that. We've also got areas around here, and I'm sure you do too, that are Hispanic populated. And they don't really like people who are not Hispanic coming in that area. Chinatown, Asian community. You see these things start popping up. But a lot of times what happens with those is it's not the fact that they set it up and they say, okay, that's it. No more blacks allowed, no more whites allowed, no more whoever allowed. That's usually not the idea. Usually what happens is it becomes a population game. And after a while, one population moves in, they set up shop, they start spreading out, and before you know it, they start making it very, very uncomfortable for the other ethnicities to be there. And slowly but surely, those people start to leave. And before you know it, ta-da, you've got one ethnicity located in one area, and it kind of becomes its own little small ethno-community. Now, this tends to be, when I read the material and listen to his words, this tends to be the idea that is pushed by a lot of the white nationalist groups, as well as guys like Richard Spencer. It's not necessarily we're going to exterminate everybody and blah, 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 and all stuff like that. It's basically like, look, eventually they'll leave once the population game starts, they start losing that population game. Now, there is some things that I've heard some people talk about as it relates to using deportation as a means. I've heard this from a lot of different groups, a lot of white groups, black groups, Hispanic groups talking about deportation. Yes, Hispanic groups talk about deportation as well. So you start to see a lot of groups are talking about a sort of a forceful removal of people. But ideally, usually what they're banking on is a population game. And that's kind of like the slow death. That's kind of the slow build of the ethnostate. Because in a way, it's not like it's a keep out, right? Like, you can go there anytime you want to, but the problem arises that when you go there, it's not the best place to go. So what ends up happening? You go somewhere else. It's kind of like if you're driving down the road and car's running kind of low on gas, and you're like, I need to stop and get some gas. And you go by, you pull up to this service station, there's a bunch of guys hanging outside, looks very unsavory, not a lot of lighting, they're all staring at you, they're mean mugging, they say, hey, what you doing here? Shit like that. You're probably going to pull on off and go find another gas station. It's kind of the same idea behind what you hear most of the white nationalists when they talk about ethnostates. Now, some groups, don't get me wrong, I don't want to completely sugarcoat this. Now, some groups are like I said before, they're like, fuck, we're going to deport people, we're going to clean them out, and it's just going to be one ethnicity located in this area. And that tends to be what a lot of people tend to talk about. But I think as far as from a reality of an ethnostate, I don't want to use the term the breeding game, but it really kind of, at the end of the day, it kind of becomes a who can fucking have kids the fastest. And in our modern days, white people definitely aren't doing that. So that's one of the reasons you see people talking about the population game right now, and you hear them talking about, whites are being exterminated and all stuff like that. Well, whites have kind of adopted the mentality of the panda bear, was it the panda or the koala, one of those fucking bears, that basically weren't reproducing, so they're starting to become extinct. So that's why I say, hey, white people, if you got a problem with extinction, start having kids. Right? It's a pretty simple process. And I know it's like, oh, we can't afford it. Well, nobody else can afford it either, so take that for what it's worth. Nobody can ever afford to have a kid. If you keep waiting to afford to have a kid, you'll never have a kid. I'll just tell you that right off the bat. But like a lot of times, that's what a lot of people are looking for. But when I listen to a lot of people talk about the idea of an ethnostate, and they'll talk about this ethnostate as if it's some sort of saving grace, right? The ethnostate is just right around the corner. And I listen to these things, and I listen, and I listen, and I listen, and I just don't see a reality behind this at all. To me, it seems like, especially since most of it's done online, to me, and this is probably going to hurt a lot of people who tend to fall into that category of believing in the ethnostate, I tend to find that most of the people that talk about it really are kind of coming from a LARP mentality. If you don't know what I mean by LARP, I'm talking live action role play. They're role playing. They're pretending what it would be like when they one day have the ethnostate. And I say this from a position of growing up in the prepper community and all these things like that. And you run into, there's LARPers in every group. They just, man, tomorrow we're going to grab all of our guns and we're going to go fight the federal government and we're going to win and take back America. No, you're not. I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of logistical things that you have not played out on any sort of realistic war map to really understand that. It's a much wider game than let's grab our guns and go to Washington. It doesn't work that way, guys. You will be squashed in an afternoon. And I know that probably hurts a lot of people's feelings too, but it's just the reality of things, guys. And I've never been one that's wanted to come on here and feed you unrealistic bullshit. I don't want to tell you that one day we're going to grab our guns and we're going to march down there. We're going to take this nation back, and it's going to be. I'm not ever going to be that guy. If you expect me to be that guy, you're going to be in for a long wait. I want to feed you a sense of reality here. I want you to understand exactly what you're asking for, the inherent dangers that can come from it, and if you are planning on doing it, well, let's talk about some realistic ways that something like this could even actually work. So I'm going to start off. Let's just talk about a couple types here. Two of the main types. One of the biggest ones that everybody talks about is Israel. Israel is technically would fall into the category of an ethnostate. But one of the big things, and that's what a lot of people say, like, well, we can set up an ethnostate here in North America, and we'll be like Israel. No, you won't. Because the main thing that keeps Israel alive is the fact that they have major backing from most of the world, mainly the United States. Now, the world is starting to turn their back on them a little bit. Whether you're for or against that, that's up to you. I have no preference or comment towards it because I am not Jewish, so I don't really care. I don't follow a Jewish God or anything like that. So, it's not a big deal to me. And if it is a big deal to you, hey, more power to you. But for me, it's no thing. It is what it is. But with Israel, the reason they're there is because they've got major backing. They've got a big brother standing behind them. They're basically the tiny dog surrounded by a bunch of other vicious dogs. But those dogs know that if they attack, that there's going to be other dogs that come in. I'll give you a good example. Here's a fine example of Israel right here, and why they're allowed to be an ethnostate. If you've ever seen a baby hippo amongst, they'll be in the waters there. I want to say you'll see like some waters maybe in like Africa or whatnot, and there will be a baby hippo in the water surrounded by saltwater crocodiles. Not a big animal at all. The baby hippo, he's large, but he's not huge compared to a saltwater crocodile. Now, this baby hippo, it'll walk up and it'll nudge the saltwater crocodiles in the face. It'll push against them. It'll do all kind of shit to these saltwater crocs. And the crocs, if they wanted to, could grab this thing and rip it to pieces. But they do not. The crocs will stand down and let this little hippo fuck with them. And the reason being is because the mama hippo and a bunch of other fucking hippos are sitting in the water in a distance as well. And they know that if those hippos come after the saltwater crocs, they will bite them in half with one chomp. Okay? So the saltwater crocs are like, fuck it. Yeah, nudge me. That's cool. And that's kind of the way Israel is. Israel is the baby hippo, and they're surrounded by saltwater crocs, vicious saltwater crocs, with the Muslim world that surrounds them. And over in the distance, watching is the mama hippos and the daddy hippos and the whole hippo fucking family, which is the United States and most of NATO. They're all sitting there watching, saying, "Yeah, go ahead, fuck with them. See what happens. We'll turn your fucking sand castle into glass." So that's kind of a good analogy there. Hopefully no one found any relations in that to be remotely racist. We'll see how it plays out if they censor that shit. But that's the main reason that an ethnostate like Israel has been around for so long. If you take it to another area, which is obviously it didn't work out, you look at apartheid in South Africa. They had it for, I want to say they had it since 1941. I could be wrong in that. 41, maybe in the 60s. I want to say it was in the 40s when they had it, but I could be off on that. I don't have it written down. I don't have it in front of me. But I believe it ended. I'm almost like 98% sure it ended in like 91. So they had it for a good while. And, you know, basically it was kind of an ethnostate setup, segregation and everything. But some of the things we're going to talk about were the reason that apartheid fell. They could not hold up against the weight of the world that was against them. You know, and let's be honest. Once apartheid did fall, talk to some South Africans. Ask them how well it went once they got rid of that segregation. There were people burned alive. They were killed. If you listen to my episodes on prepping, I believe it was the Doomsday Marauder episode where I discussed a story where some of the South African farms there had some of the best defenses in the world, and they just had siege laid on them by many of these African tribes and gangs, and eventually they all fell. But some horror stories coming out of there. So I mean, there's a lot of different aspects to the ethnostate that I think a lot of people don't think about. And you know, and I'll be honest with you, when I've brought them up to people, I've yet to get people will tell me about an ethnostate all day, and I'll bring these things up to them, and there's not really a whole lot of answer. What they end up telling me is basically, well, it's an ideal, it's something to look towards, and yada yada yada. So, and to that, I quite harshly say, then it's LARPing. It's not something that you're actually planning to do. It's just something you would like to see one day. And that's fine if that's the case. But don't present it to people as the end all. So let's talk about, we're actually we're gonna take the ethnostate to blast here a little bit. A little bit of sip of my drink here. We're gonna put the ethnostate a little bit on blast here, because I want to present these things to you to start with. Basically, why I think it would fail. And, you know, and all of you guys that are into this sort of shit, don't look at this that I'm trying to bash you. I'm not trying to degrade you. I'm not trying to call you out or whatever you want to term it as. I'm saying these things not to insult you, but to make you think. You can get butthurt and leave and say, oh man, fuck that guy. I don't want to hear that, blah, blah, blah. We're going to do this. We're going to rise again, yada, yada. All those things like that. Or you can listen and solve some problems. So maybe you can kind of get some underlying words of what I'm talking about here. Let's talk about why I think it would fail. The very first one would be public opinion. Public opinion, despite what people will say, oh, I don't give a shit what people think about me. It doesn't matter whether you care or not. It is what it is. Because everyone else is swayed by public opinion. And if everyone else thinks something about you, guess what? That's what you will become, whether you are that or not. Classic case is someone like Richard Spencer, right? Richard Spencer, not a Nazi. But guess what? If you show him, say, who is this guy? I don't know. He's that Nazi, though. And, you know, they'll throw that out there. Or you say, do you think this guy's a Nazi? Yeah. It's just because they keep hearing it. It's the same thing during the Ron Paul years. I was around, actually, helping a little small campaign community here in my area for Ron Paul. And, what did I hear from people? Ron Paul's a kook. All the fucking time. What makes him a kook? I don't know. He's a kook. And it just kind of becomes this parrot thing, you know. You can't think that most people are going to sit around and form opinions, educated opinions about things before opening their mouth. Most people deserve to be sitting on the shoulder of a pirate asking for crackers. That's basically how it is, you know. It's like with the Ron Paul thing, right? You say, tell me what you know about Ron Paul, and they're like, Ron Paul's a kook, Ron Paul's a kook, or, you know, what do you know about Richard Spencer, sir? He's a Nazi, he's a Nazi. You know, I mean, that's basically what you find from most fucking people. So, public opinion absolutely does matter, especially when you're talking about something like an ethnostate. Because, like it or not, you're going to have to convince a large majority of the population that what you want is okay. If you look at one of the reasons South African apartheid fell was because public opinion was absolutely against it. Not just in the area, but worldwide. You had anti-apartheid demonstrations going on all over the world. And eventually the weight of that world will crush through your walls. So you're going to have to figure out how you're going to sway public opinion. And, when you look at the population game right now, that's a very difficult concept. That's something very difficult. So you got to face it. Without the public opinion, you're never ever going to get it. You're just not going to. They'll throw out a lot of different things towards you, especially when you start talking about this deportation shit, right? And some people throw that out there. Oh, that's the option. We'll just deport. How are you going to convince people that let's just start fucking deporting people who aren't? I'll do from a white nationalist standpoint that say this, and I want you to understand that this isn't the stance of any group or anything like that. This is just something I've heard and heard from other people and whatnot who aren't really associated with anybody. But you've got some of the white nationalist groups will say, we'll just deport people. And I'm like, how the fuck do you plan on convincing the United States that it's okay to deport people out of wherever the fuck you're at? Let's take South Carolina, right? How are you going to convince, first off, the community that that's okay? You might be able to pull that off. What about the county? What about the state? You're going to convince the state government that you're going to be able to deport people out? Oh, well, we'll take over the state government. Okay. Well, that's going to bring up another can of worms here in the future. But, you're always going to have those people that are going to say, hey, man, they're not all bad. And they're absolutely correct. Because let's think about it. If you're talking about an ethnostate, let's be real. Somebody like Sheriff David Clark, black man, let's say you're creating a white ethnostate. Sheriff David Clark, are you honestly going to tell me that you do not want a man like that in your community? That is a strong man that I would gladly stand beside any day. But I've got some white trash neighbors that I wouldn't give a bucket of piss for. Okay, so it's not going to be this whole idea of, well, we'll create a white ethnostate and it'll all, it's all white, so it'll be all right. No, that's not the way it's going to play out. Men, people in general, especially men, but people in general, I tend to find their character is much more important than anything else. Naturally, there are certain cultural aspects, but you also have to take into account people from other ethnicities, other cultures who have assimilated into the American culture. And that's a big deal. So, you have to understand that from a level of public opinion, it's gonna be very difficult for you to say, you know what, guys like Sheriff David Clark, fuck that guy, let's get him out of here. I don't see how you plan on pulling that off. You could say, well, we can get rid of all the people that are bad. Well, that's great. I'm okay with that. Let's get rid of all the fucking shitheads. But guess what? You can't get rid of all the shitheads. That's the problem. Now, does something need to be done about the gangs? Yeah, it absolutely does. And then fuck, get rid of them. If it was up to me, I'd say open season, right? We'll do it Philippine style. But, I'm not making the rules. So, you guys don't want me to make the rules. How are you going to win the support of your local government? Are there any plans for that? Do you have members who are wanting to create this ethnostate? Do you have them already working in local government? Have they moved into local government? Are they trying to get higher seats? Are they trying to move up the ladder? These are things a lot of people aren't thinking about. They're just like, well, we're going to have it. It doesn't just magically appear. There's going to have to be steps taken. And for a lot of people, in order to actually get that position, you're going to have a pretty clean nose. You can't be at MPI events. You're not going to be able to post shit online. A classic example, I'll give you a good example here. This is in South Carolina. We had I think it was the new governor, McMaster, who replaced that fucking bitch, Nikki Haley. I'm glad she's gone, just in case you didn't catch that. But McMaster was a member of a golf club here that has always been whites only. And it's not something that's listed. It doesn't say this is a whites only club. It's just a golf club. But they don't have any black members, and they've never had any black members. When he was getting ready to be put in as the new governor, holy shit, people were going crazy just because he belonged to a club that didn't have any black members. So just something as small as that. No proof of anything. Nothing negative, just, hey, you don't have any white members, or you don't have any black members in your club. So that's a problem, right? We don't want this guy leading us. So how do you plan on winning the public opinion that's going to allow you to first take the position and then maintain it? Because maintaining it's going to be the big problem. Probably the biggest problem you're going to have, even if you can get it. So what's the old saying? I don't remember who said it, but it was regarding the United States. It says a republic if you can keep it. Yeah, if you can keep it. That's the big deal. And that brings us to our next thing, defense. Once you establish your ethnostate, how will you defend it? What are you going to do to defend it? Because let me tell you something. Once you set it up, if you do not think the fucking world is going to be trying to crush you underneath its boot, you are sadly mistaken. Because drums in the deep, they are coming. You will hear them. They are coming. They will be there. And it's probably in a lot of situations you're going to have the might, because a lot of people talk about doing it here in the U.S. So you're going to have the might of the U.S. military weighing down on you. Okay? And guess what? That U.S. military's got a lot of people who aren't of the same ethnicity. So how are you going to convince them? Because in the military, you have to think, especially in any sort of profession where people are putting their lives on the line, they're not thinking about the fact that there's a black guy covering them, or they're not thinking the fact there's a Hispanic guy, or a Hispanic guy's not thinking it's a white guy, whatever. They're not thinking that shit. They're thinking, that's my brother, and he's got my six. So when you set up your state, and they send you in, and trust me, there'll be a massive PR campaign that will paint you to be the most horrible fucking racist in the world. And that's what the world will think. These people will have no trouble going in there and taking that land back. So how do you plan on defending your ethnostate? How will you do it? It's the same thing I've always talked about with people when they start talking about secession. Oh, we're going to secede. I'm like, how? How are you going to secede? Because the federal government is, one, they're going to pull back all your funding, and most states aren't going to secede because of that fact alone. They don't want their federal funding pulled. But once that happens, guess what's going to happen? Let me tell you how it's going to play out. The president is going to issue an order, and within a day, at the very least, within a day, say like the governor did secession, within a day, the governor will be arrested, and there'll probably be martial law. There'll probably be a hostile takeover of your state house. I remember hearing stories, and I can't confirm these by any means. It's just stories I heard from the grapevine of gentlemen I know in the military. That years ago, when Rick Perry was talking about secession, and he was like big on it, right? I heard from different military guys that there were orders issued out that if it happens, that within 24 hours there would be an invasion of Texas. So, and like I said, I don't have a shred of fucking proof to throw out there to you, but that was what was on the grapevine. Because let me tell you something, the United States has proven that it is not going to let go of its property that easy. Case in point, even before the Civil War, before that whole thing broke down, and let's be honest about the whole thing. The South, that's why they call it the War of Northern Aggression. The South just wanted to be left alone. And they weren't going to have that. But even before that, you had South Carolina starting trouble again. They wanted to secede on their own to start with. And they were in negotiations with Andrew Jackson. And guess what? He was like, you know what, guys? Fuck it. So he already had troops mobilizing to invade South Carolina and take it over. Or take it back, I guess you could say. And luckily, cooler heads prevailed, and they were able to work out a deal. But that invasion was already coming down the line. So, and some people will look to like the Civil War and they're like, well, the South separated before, and it's like, well, yeah, but how did that play out? The U.S. government did not just sit back and say, okay, well, you guys can go. No, there was a full out invasion of the Confederate States. So at the end of the day, the federal government is not going to just let you take it, hold it, and leave you alone. They're going to come for you. And this has happened all throughout history, too, in different parts of the world. You guys know I like the pirate culture and everything. Even if you just look back to the golden age of piracy and the establishment of the Republic of Pirates. Same thing. They were saying, look, England, you guys are not even here. anymore. We've taken over this area down here in the Caribbean. We've got it. We just want to be left alone. Leave it alone. This is ours now." And they said, "I don't think so." And the might of the British Army came in there, or British Navy came in there and fucking removed them. So that's not going to happen. There's a reason there's such things as superpowers and giant nations. They became that way because they have the ability to consume. How did the Roman Empire get so big? It was a hungry bitch. It consumed everything in its path. And that's exactly what's going to happen when you go to set up your state, your ethnostate. They're going to come for you because they're not just going to give it to you. "Oh yeah, here you go. Take Wyoming. It's yours." No, they're not going to do that. They're going to come for you. Even when you see like the issue that happened with the Bundys, where they took over that little that little bird sanctuary or whatever that nobody was at. What happened? That was nothing, right? That was nothing. What happened? They came for them. Okay? They're going to come for you. Branch Davidians. Branch Davidians had an area set up. Oh, they were trying to get David Koresh. David Koresh jogged around that compound every morning. That's on record. So why didn't they grab him then? They will come for you once you set up your state. How will you defend it? Even if you say, "Oh, we got this, we got that." How long can you defend it? Because that's going to take us to our next thing, which is blockades and sanctions. Because let me tell you what's going to happen. Once you do set it up, let's say, see, there's a lot of different ways to win a war. It's not all about shooting, guys. There's wars going on all the time that don't require bullets. They're happening right now. Let's say you can defend it. Let's say you've set up a show of force that's just so deadly that they're like, "You know what, let them have it," right? Let them have it. It's theirs. You will be faced with sanctions and blockades like you've never seen before. Because what happens when you set up your state and the might of the U.S. military says, "You know what? That's fine. We're not going to invade you. We're just going to surround you. Nothing comes in, nothing goes out." Real simple. How long before your people will be damn near eating each other? Okay? Because yeah, you've got things that will sustain you for a while, but it won't sustain you indefinitely, especially once blockades have been put on you. What happens when you go to try and do trade and there's been some UN or UN sanctions put against you that says no trade shall be done here, trade sanctions? What are you going to do? How are you going to make money? How are you going to support your economy? How will you feed your people? What about water? Water could be an issue. They could even cut off water to your area. All of your you have to understand, all your federal funding's gone, which means prices of things are going to go up in your area as well. What are you going to do about the sanctions and the blockades? Do you have plans for someone to already set up some sort of trade? Have you thought that far ahead? Because a lot of people, I've always talked to people about revolutions. I've been talking about revolutions forever, right? It's a fascinating subject. But the thing I always find with most people is they never think about what happens after the revolution. What about after the revolution? All right, revolution's over. What happens? Well, we just go back to what we had before. Then why the fuck did we fight? A lot of people just aren't thinking that far ahead. I've always been a long game player. I'm constantly making moves. I'm probably half psychopath. I'm constantly making fucking moves and setting up pieces on the chessboard, planning 5-6 moves ahead. There's a reason for that. But a lot of people, man, they don't think with a strategic mind. They're just like, we want to do it, you know. And I asked them, like, you know, what are you going to do about these sanctions? What are you going to do about the blockades? What happens if they just decide to, we're set up on the coast here with a port? Well, what happens when they blockade your port? Because that can happen. No flights in or out. Anything goes to fly in, we'll fucking shoot it down with an F-16. What are you going to do? What about the military bases that are located in your area? What are you going to do about those? So you can start to see, guys, things are going to start to fall apart These are just 3 things I've listed. These 3 things have dealt you a death blow already. If you don't have answers, realistic answers for those questions, don't even begin talking about creating some sort of state, much less an ethnostate. Because these will always be issues you run into. And some people have said, well, maybe North America is not the way to go. Maybe we'll do someplace in Europe. You run into the same problems in Europe. You have to understand, we're on the verge right now. We're teetering on the edge of world government. Okay? I remember years ago, back in the fucking 90s, when people weren't posting shit online and it was all passed around in 20 times copied VHS tapes of guys sitting in front of a old ass big giant camera talking about the New World Order, right? That was always like a joke. Oh, the New World Order is going to get you, huh? And now we hear it all the time, right? One world government, a New World Order. John McCain just said New World Order the other week. I was listening to an interview with him. He's like, Trump is threatening the New World Order. And it's like, wow, okay. We're on the verge of global government. And the problem with global government is unless you can leave the globe, what are you going to do? They're everywhere. That's the problem. That's the problem with a New World Order. The not new, not order, world is in there, okay? World. Until you can leave the world, you're kind of fucking trapped here. So what are you going to do? I think at the end of the day, once you can start to have the ability to answer these questions, even if you come close to answering these questions, these are questions you should even discuss with your tribe. Because when I start talking about the idea behind nations can be shrunken down very, very small to a concept of community, to tribe especially. But the same problems can happen with a tribe. If you get branded as a whatever it may be, look at a lot of these guys get branded as Nazi or whatever. I think the fucking Wolves of Vinland are listed as some sort of ethno-nationalist thing on the SPLC. And I mean, it's the Wolves of Vinland. They don't give a shit about much anything that's going on in this world. Just creating their own. But still, same thing. So they've been labeled. So there's going to be that's almost kind of a level of blockade and sanctions that's been put on them. If the government ever decides to come in there, they're going to have difficulty defending. Public opinion's already being worked on, so those issues start to happen. So all these things could even be shrunk down from even the concept of an ethno-state to an ethno-tribe. The last one here, who will support you? And I use this term for a specific reason. I had a conversation with some gentlemen. They were talking about this is actually one of the things that spurned this idea of the ethno-state. And they were talking in the realm of a southern ethno-state. This is where the whole thing gets chopped up in a lot of different pieces. And basically, it was like the only people allowed were Southern Christians. And that's pretty much it. And I made the comment, I said, so if I'm not a Christian, I'm a follower of Asatru, and, I'm Southern born and bred, about lost my entire male, the male portion of my family in the war between the states. We got strong Southern roots. My family pretty much set up this area initially, before it even became what it is now. Some of the first people here. Does the fact that I am not a Christian, does that basically exempt me from the Southern ethno-state? They're like, well, yeah, just drop your pagan. No, they didn't say pagan. They said alien. Drop your alien religion, and you can come right in, or some shit like that. And I'm like, fuck you talking about? You guys are worshiping a deity that was spurned from the Middle East. It's like, what are you talking about? Fucking alien shit. But the biggest issue, one of the things I brought up to them, especially, the last shit was kind of in joking, but the main issue I brought up to them was, so tell me this. I am sympathetic to your cause. I'm sympathetic to a strong Southern nation. I am Southern born and bred. Everything. I mean, let's say I'm sympathetic to your cause here. Okay, I am sympathetic to your cause. But you tell me at the end of the day that I'm not welcome once the fight is over with. What reason do I have to continue fighting with you? Because at the end of it all, it's just like, well, thanks, fuck you. You're not allowed in here anyway. Thanks for the fighting skills throughout. Thanks for the men. And I tell guys like this, I say, when you start chopping up things into small groups like this, what you're doing is you're taking your itsy bitsy little group and you're chopping it up into even smaller groups. Till the fact of you've made more enemies than you have allies. And the fact of the matter is, you're losing a numbers game. You need allies more than you need enemies. But people don't fall into that category a lot of times, and then it falls into that whole LARPing idea of, well, once we have it, you can just come into the fold and drop your heathen ways, and it's like, fuck you, man. It's absolutely ridiculous to even think that you're going to get close to doing that. I bring up these same questions to them, and it's like, oh, well, by the grace of God, well, okay, whatever. You're speaking in some sort of one day idea, and I'm into reality, guys. I want some reality. But at the same time, you have to understand, especially the people that talk about deportations. How exactly are you going to get some people? You have to understand you're probably going to develop an insurgency in your area as well. Because some of these people that are going to be, let's say that you manage to get the majority, right? You get the majority, and what's going to happen is there's going to be some people who are not sympathetic to your cause that are working in the shadows of your ethnostate. And what they're going to do is they're going to work with people outside of the ethnostate. And before you know it, you've got a small insurgency in there who's starting to steal hearts and minds, and we've seen how insurgencies can grow. And I think that's something you'll definitely run into. But at the end of the day, when you start talking about who's going to support you, first off, most guys don't even know what they're fighting for. Okay? In a lot of these ideas of this whole ethnostate idea, it's like, well, what are you going to do? Let's say that my daughter decides to marry a black guy, right? So now in this new ethnostate, my daughter and her husband can't come visit me. So now you've separated a family. So how are we going to play that out? How are you going to get me sympathetic to your cause here? One of the things I find that's always been awesome about the militia movement is the militia movement has always been, no matter what, at least all the ones I've been with, despite what the media will tell you, the militia movement has always been about Americans, legal Americans at that, but Americans, and it was no idea behind, this, this is a white-only militia, this is Hispanic-only, Asian. It didn't fucking matter. You didn't care. You just wanted somebody watching your six. You all had the same congruent goals. And that's one of the things when you start talking about tribe especially. As long as everybody's got the same mission, who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck where they come from as long as they got the same mission? I know that probably hurts a lot of people's feelings. Maybe you're someone who's more caught up in the whole ethno battle. But with me, it's all about the mission, right? This is something that's been talked about by many people. But the mission's the goal at the end of the day. It's kind of like the, again, to go right back to pirate culture. In pirate culture, who give a shit? A lot of times these pirates would hit a slave ship, and they'd say, look, slaves, you got two choices. We'll either drop you off at the port and you can go your separate ways, or you can join us and make some money. We don't care. Either way, do what you're going to do. Just stay out of our way. And a lot of people tend to only see that one color that was green. But at the end of the day, they all had the same mission, right? So let's say that the slaves joined the group. Blackbeard was notorious for employing slaves in his group. And guess what? They've all got the same mission. They're all watching each other's back. They all want to make a dime. They all just want to get back home. And how can you fault that? How can you fault that if the mission is all the same? Now, obviously, when you start having some cultural differences that disrupt the mission, well, there's a problem. Okay? So let's talk here briefly. I don't want to run too much longer. But let's talk here briefly about how I think an ethnostate could succeed. One of the big things, which I talked about earlier, is having some sort of large backing by some other powerful nation. That's going to mean you're going to need the backing of the the United States, Russia, China. That's probably about the big ones there. But at the end of the day, their biggest problem is going to be NATO. Because if NATO goes against you, well, you're going to have some fucking problems. Okay? But you're going to need that. Even if you look at something like the Revolutionary War, a lot of people like to talk about the Revolutionary War, as an example of a small group fighting back. We have to understand the Revolutionary War was not just 3% of people who were out fighting. That's not just what it was. They had a lot of help from other people, including France. A lot of groups. There were some Germans that were helping. So a lot of people were aiding the Americans at the time. So, you gotta have that. If you look, I tell you, I hate to even use this fucking name on this show, but if you've ever read any of Mao Zedong's, I think like Rules for Guerrilla Fighting or something like that, one of the things that he mentions in there is no big insurgency like that can ever succeed without the backing of a larger group. And I'm telling you, I implore you to look throughout history and see if when this has ever been not the case, right? I mean, think of any large insurgency that was able to win, any insurgency that was ever able to win against a larger force without the backing and help of another. It doesn't happen. So, as I said before with Israel, so that's the reason Israel survived. They've got that big brother watching them, right? It's there to help them if anybody tries to push them around. The other way I think it could happen would be something like a complete and utter government collapse. It could be economic, whatever you want to term it as, some sort of massive system reset that that manages to happen somehow. Like, I don't know, it could be a fucking solar flare, EMP, it could be a asteroid, it could be just an economic collapse of epic proportions, which I don't want to throw any alerts towards anybody, but I actually heard some rustling in the wind saying to keep an eye on March 15th for things to start going down, so in the stock market, whatnot. So I don't know, we'll see how that plays out. They may decide to crash the economy and blame it on Trump, who knows. But then I don't want to put my tinfoil hat on or anything. But if you look at something like the fall of Rome, when Rome fell, man, that give the rise to many of these smaller tribal societies. And I think if the tribe is ever to grow to something bigger than what it actually is right now, it's going to take something massive like that. You have to have some sort of system reset in order to actually see anything like that happen. Because basically what would happen is once that all fell apart and there's no infrastructure, there's nothing there, which, let's be honest, if you guys have listened to me talk about prepping before, I am not someone that thinks infrastructure is going to be gone forever, unless it's some sort of massive cataclysmic event that the world is not going to be able to recover from in a matter of months. I don't see a complete infrastructure collapse, because that's usually, if you've ever been in any really bad disasters, infrastructure tends to come back fairly fast, especially here in some place like the United States. But, if you were to have something big like that happen, you could essentially rebuild your area into an ethnostate. It is possible. However, you will either in the future or even at that time run into the same problems you had before: blockades, sanctions, public opinion, and defense. Will you really be able to convince people, if you've got Sheriff David Clark in your community and you're in a complete fucking collapse, are you really going to be able to convince people that guy needs to fucking go? But we're going to keep these fucking people here who've got they got 3 kids on welfare. These white people's got 3 kids on welfare, and they've been living in a fucking trailer park collecting food stamps. Are you really going to be able to convince people that that's going to be the better call just because of the color of their skin? Nah, I'm not going to buy that. Give me fucking Sheriff David Clark any day, right? It's kind of one of those things where you have to think about, again, what we talked about before, the mission. What's the fucking mission? Well, we got to fucking survive. We need somebody strong. We need a good thinker. Well, it's not those guys. They barely made it out of fucking high school, if they even got their fucking GED. Let's take Sheriff David Clark. That motherfucker can be on my side.
My name is S.